She danced barefoot on a cracked city sidewalk, with no home, no family, no future, until a millionaire's car stopped in front of her. And his wheelchair-bound son whispered, "She looks like she's flying." What happened next silenced an entire crowd, shocked a father who had lost hope, and sparked a miracle no one saw coming. By the end of this story, you won't just believe in second chances, you'll believe in miracles that dance. Watch till the end, because this is not just a story. It's a transformation you'll never forget. The sun blazed over the crowded streets of downtown Atlanta. The pavement was cracked, littered with candy wrappers and fading chalk art. A light breeze stirred the trash, but it brought no relief from the heat. On the corner, beside a rusted mailbox, stood a girl. She was barefoot, her clothes worn thin and patched in places with mismatched fabric. Her skin was dark as mahogany, glowing in the sunlight. Her eyes scanned the passing crowd, each face indifferent, each step hurried. Her name was Amara. She was 16, homeless, and no one seemed to notice her, except for the security guard who warned her not to block the sidewalk again. She stepped back, her stomach growled, but she had learned to ignore it. Instead, she turned on the small Bluetooth speaker she kept in her backpack, a gift from a kind old man who once traded it for a sketch she had drawn. Music flowed into the air, soft at first, then louder, a rhythm she knew deep in her bones. She closed her eyes, and she began to dance, not just sway, but dance. Her arms sliced through the air like poetry in motion. Her feet skimmed the concrete, as if it were a stage. Her hair whipped behind her, each movement a cry of freedom. People slowed, they turned, phones came out, some smiled, some watched silently. And then a sleek black van pulled up across the street. The door slid open. A man stepped out, tall and sharply dressed in a navy blue suit. He moved with purpose, but beside him a boy emerged. His legs were thin. He sat in a wheelchair. His face looked pale, framed by curls the color of chestnuts. He looked no older than 10. The crowd barely noticed them. But the boy's eyes were locked on Amara. He watched every spin, every glove, and when the music stopped he clapped louder than anyone. Amara turned toward the sound. Their eyes met. The man in the suit said something to the boy. The boy shook his head and wheeled himself across the street, straight toward her. The crowd parted. A hush fell. The boy stopped in front of her. "Will you teach me to dance?" he asked. Amara blinked. "No one ever asked me that before," she said. The boy smiled. "I saw you dancing in my dream last night. You were flying." A few people chuckled, but the boy was serious. His father approached. "You do not have to," he said to Amara. But Amara knelt beside the boy. "Show me your hands." He raised them. She placed hers against his, gently. "Feel the beat," she whispered, and then the music started again. Amara moved slowly. She showed him how to sway his arms, how to feel rhythm, not just follow it. People circled around, phones were lifted. She spun. He twirled his chair, and in that moment, laughter broke free from his lips. The kind that made heads turn. The kind that made strangers smile. Then it happened. His chair rolled back slightly as he spun again. His arms flailed outward, and he stood up. Just for a second. Everyone gasped. The father dropped his coffee. Amara froze. The boy's legs trembled, weak, shaking but real. He stumbled and fell forward into her arms. She caught him. A tear rolled down her cheek. He looked up. "I stood," he whispered. The father was already kneeling. He touched his son's leg. "You felt that?" The boy nodded, stunned. The doctor in the crowd stepped forward. He knelt and examined the boy's legs. "He should not be able to do that," the doctor said. The father's eyes filled with tears. The crowd stood motionless. Amara looked down at the boy. "You flew today," she whispered. And for the first time in years, someone held her hand. The boy's small fingers wrapped tightly around hers. His grip was warm, full of life. People around them clapped, but it was quiet, almost reverent. Like they had witnessed something sacred. The father rose slowly, eyes glistening with emotion. "Who are you?" he asked Amara. She looked down, unsure how to answer. "Just someone who dances when the world does not look," she said softly. He stared at her, searching for words. "You changed something today," he murmured. Then he pulled out his wallet and offered a few crisp bills. Amara shook her head. I do not want your money. Then what do you want? She hesitated. Her voice wavered. A place to sleep where it is safe. A place where I can dance without being chased away. The man stood in silence for a moment. Then he looked down at his son. The boy grinned. Dad, can she come home with us? A hush fell again. The father glanced at Amara, then back at his son. He nodded slowly. If she wants to. Amara's knees gave out as relief washed over her. But she did not cry. She had cried enough for a lifetime. Instead, she smiled. The kind of smile that breaks through years of silence. The man offered his hand. She took it. The boy wheeled beside her, holding her backpack in his lap. Together they walked to the van. The crowd watched as the doors closed behind them. Inside, the boy asked, Can you teach me to fly again tomorrow? Amara laughed gently. Yes, but next time, we fly together. The father turned the ignition, his heart pounding. He had come downtown to sign a contract. Instead, he found a miracle. And the girl who made it happen. The van rolled forward, merging into the quiet Sunday traffic. Amara looked out the tinted window, watching the streets blur past. Each corner, each alley, held pieces of her old life. A bench where she once slept in the rain. A diner window where she used to watch families eat. But for the first time she was not on the outside looking in. She was moving forward. With a family. The boy leaned against her shoulder, his eyes heavy with sleep. You are like music, he murmured. Amara turned to him. What do you mean? When you dance, it feels like the world stops being scary. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever said something so beautiful to her. The father glanced at them in the rearview mirror. His face was soft now. He had come from boardrooms and balance sheets. But nothing had prepared him for this. When they reached the gated neighborhood, Amara froze. The iron gates were tall, crowned with gold vines. Beyond them stood mansions lined with trees. Clean sidewalks. Sprinklers misting emerald lawns. This was another world. A world that had never belonged to her. Until now. The guard at the post house looked puzzled when he saw Amara, but the father waved him off. She is family, he said firmly. The gate opened. Amara felt her breath return. They pulled into a long driveway where staff waited by the door. A woman rushed forward and opened the door to the van. She froze when she saw the girl. But the boy shouted, This is Amara. She dances like an angel. The woman smiled, confused but welcoming. Inside the house, chandeliers glittered above polished floors. Portraits lined the walls. The scent of lavender drifted through the air. Amara's bare feet touched the marble. She flinched. Wait, the father said. He knelt down and slipped a pair of soft slippers onto her feet. No more cold ground, he whispered. Her eyes brimmed with tears. But she held them back. A maid showed her to a guest room. The bed was bigger than any space she had ever slept in. Fresh sheets. Fluffy pillows. A mirror that did not crack or stain. Amara sat on the edge, silent. Then she curled her fingers and pressed her palms together. Not to pray, but to feel the rhythm again. The beat that lived in her soul. She stood and danced slowly in the quiet. No eyes watching. No cold wind biting. Only her, and the music inside her. The door creaked open. The boy watched from his chair. You look like light, he said. She laughed. And for the first time she believed him. The boy wheeled further into the room, his eyes wide with wonder. Do you always dance like that when no one is watching? Amara nodded. It is when I feel the freest. He tilted his head. Will you teach me that kind of freedom? She reached for his hand. It is already inside you. You just have to let it out. They moved to the center of the room. The curtains swayed gently, letting golden light spill across the floor. She placed his hand on her waist and guided his movements. Slow. Patient. Every turn was a victory. Every lift of his arm a quiet rebellion against the body that had once betrayed him. From down the hall the father watched. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes misted with something he could not name. It was not just admiration. It was awe. He stepped into the room. I have never seen him this alive, he said softly. Amara turned. Her voice shook with humility. He has always had life. He only needed someone to remind him. The man nodded, his jaw tight. You reminded me too. She met his eyes. I did? You reminded me that strength does not always look like money or power. Sometimes it looks like a girl dancing on the street when the world has forgotten her. Amara looked down. She had never been anyone's reminder before. Only a shadow. A blur. But now, she was a spark. The boy wheeled forward and reached for his father's hand. Can we start a dance school? He asked suddenly. The man blinked. A school? For kids in wheelchairs. For kids like Amara, so they can fly too. The idea hit like a bolt of light. Unexpected. Undeniable. Amara's eyes lit up. I could teach them. The man crouched beside them, his voice steady. Then we will build it, together. And just like that, a new dream was born. Not from riches. Not from fame. But from one dance in the street. And one boy who dared to believe. The boy's face glowed with excitement. Amara knelt beside him, her heart pounding with something she had never felt before. Purpose. Not just survival. Not just escape. But something to build. Something to give. The father rose, already pulling out his phone. I will call my architect. We will need a space. Mirrors. Ramps. Speakers. Maybe even a stage. His voice was alive with vision. The boy clapped his hands. And bright colors, not boring walls like the hospitals. Amara laughed. Yes. Bright. Loud. Like joy. The father looked at her. You will lead this, if you want to. She hesitated. I do not have papers, or school. You have heart, he said firmly. You have fire. Everything else can be taught. She stared at him, barely breathing. No one had ever offered her anything beyond leftovers. Now they were offering her leadership. A future. The boy wheeled closer. I want to call it the Flying Feet School. Amara smiled through trembling lips. Then that is what it will be. That night, as the stars blinked above the quiet estate, Amara sat on the windowsill of her new room. The moonlight washed over her, soft and silver. She opened a worn notebook she had kept in her backpack. On the first page she scribbled, Day 1, I was seen, I was chosen, I flew. Behind her, the boy slept peacefully. In the hallway, the father made plans. And in the darkness, something stirred in the city. Hope. Born from movement. From rhythm. From a girl who danced like no one was watching. Until someone finally did. The next morning, sunlight spilled across Amara's face before her eyes even opened. She sat up slowly, the sheets soft against her skin, the silence unfamiliar but comforting. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered the boy. The dance. The promise. She stepped out of bed and opened the curtains wide. Outside, the garden shimmered with dew, and birds chirped like tiny bells in the trees. She touched the glass, as if to make sure it was real. Downstairs, the house was already stirring. Voices echoed from the kitchen. The scent of warm bread and cinnamon drifted up the stairs. She followed the sound, her heart thudding with quiet hope. In the dining room, the boy sat in his chair, a plate of pancakes in front of him. He grinned when he saw her. You are late, he teased. I wanted to dream a little longer, she replied, smiling. The father looked up from his laptop. I spoke to a city official this morning. We can lease a building downtown, right near where you used to dance. Amara froze. The same corner? He nodded. We will transform it. The city will help, and I will fund the rest. Her hands flew to her mouth. The boy reached across the table and grabbed her fingers. You are going to change everything. No, she whispered. We are. That afternoon, they drove to the corner. Same cracks in the pavement, same graffiti on the walls. But this time, Amara stood tall. Not as a shadow, but as a founder, a leader. The crowd gathered slowly as word spread. The dancing girl was back. This time, with something greater than a performance. She brought a vision, a future. She stood on a small platform while the father spoke into a microphone. He introduced her not as a guest, but as Miss Amara King, director of the Flying Feet School. The crowd erupted in applause. But it was the boy's cheer that echoed the loudest. She stepped forward, looked into the faces of the same city that once ignored her. Her voice rang out strong. I danced on this corner when I had nothing. But dance gave me everything. And now, I want to give that back. People wiped their eyes. Cameras flashed. And the city for the first time saw her clearly. Not as a homeless girl, not as a street performer, but as a miracle, in motion, in rhythm, in flight. After the speech, people lined up just to speak with her. Teachers, mothers, children in wheelchairs, teens with worn sneakers and nervous eyes. They all came forward with the same question. When does the school open? Amara looked at the father. He smiled and gave a single nod. She turned back to the crowd. Soon, she said. Very soon. The boy wheeled beside her holding a flyer they had printed just that morning. It showed her silhouette dancing, surrounded by children, some standing, some in chairs, all moving. The words were bold across the top. The Flying Feet School, where every soul deserves to soar. The flyer fluttered in the breeze as volunteers began taking names and numbers. A woman placed a hand on Amara's shoulder. My daughter cannot walk, she whispered, voice cracking. But she watches your videos every night. She says you make her legs feel strong again. Amara reached out and hugged the woman gently. Bring her. We will dance with our hearts first. The woman sobbed softly into her shoulder. The boy looked up at her with wonder. Do you know what you are doing? He asked. Amara knelt beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead. I am learning as I go. He smiled. Good, because I want to learn with you. Behind them, construction workers had already arrived. They began measuring, unloading supplies, hanging banners. The broken building on the corner, once covered in graffiti and dust, was already beginning to change. One window had been cleaned, one wall painted bright yellow. Each brushstroke was a small rebellion against what used to be. As the sun began to set, Amara stood in the middle of the street, where she had once danced alone. Now children danced beside her. Some wobbled, some spun in circles, some sat in their chairs, arms outstretched like wings. Laughter filled the air. The music played from her speaker. Still the same one from the old man years ago. Still the same beat. But now it sounded different. It sounded like home, like healing, like a future rising on the very ground where her past once tried to bury her. As twilight deepened, golden streetlights blinked on across the neighborhood. The old corner, once forgotten, glowed like a stage under the warm halo of light. Children continued to twirl and sway, their shadows stretching long across the sidewalk. Amara stood in the center, arms wide, her heart full. She looked up at the sky, the stars beginning to shimmer through the dusky blue. And for a moment she remembered the cold nights she had once spent under that same sky. Alone, hungry, invisible. But now she was surrounded by laughter, by love, by possibility. The boy wheeled beside her, a crown made of paper resting crookedly on his head. I feel like a king, he said, giggling. You are, she smiled. He looked up at her. So are you. Across the street, the father watched them, arms crossed, pride shining in his eyes. The school sign had just been hung above the entrance, bold letters gleaming in the night. The Flying Feet School. It stood for every forgotten soul, every unheard voice, every child told they would never soar. Amara took one final breath, closed her eyes, and danced. No music this time, just the sound of hearts beating in sync, of wheels spinning, of hope rising. The crowd stilled, watching, breathless. And when she stopped, there was silence. Then applause. Wild, joyful, endless. Amara bowed low, tears in her eyes. But they were not tears of sadness. They were the kind that water new beginnings, that bless the soil of second chances. As she rose, the boy whispered, You helped me walk, but more than that, you helped me dream. Amara placed a hand on his shoulder. And you reminded me why I was dancing in the dark in the first place. Together they turned to the glowing school behind them. The doors were open. The lights were on. And tomorrow, the dancing would begin again. For all of them. Because miracles do not always fall from the sky. Sometimes, they dance in from the street.